After going through enough heartbreak with real girls, Masamune swore he'd stay away from them and focus all his love on 2D girls from his manga and anime. But then Ririsa, a newbie cosplayer who looks exactly like Masamune's favorite 2D character, shows up. Will this girl finally open his heart again? Oh, and before we continue, please hit that subscribe button. We couldn't do this without your support, and we really appreciate every bit of it. Thank you so much. Our story starts with the glorification of the cosplay culture, which mostly features female cosplayers in skimpy outfits, and male photographers running about with their cameras. Then again, cosplaying is a serious business that shouldn't be taken lightly, which I may or may not have been a part of at some point. Anyways, those girls are not the protagonists of this story, though. The scene then focuses on the real protagonist, Masamune, who also happens to be the president and only member of the manga club at his school. While his schoolmates are getting busy trying to recruit new members to their clubs, he hides himself in the club room, obsessing over his favorite 2D character, LILIEL. Suddenly, a four-eyed girl disturbs his peace, much to Masamune's surprise. Her name is Ririsa, a first-year student who hopes to enter the club. At first, Masamune is apprehensive about her presence, but after he discovers that she is also an otaku, as much as he is, not to mention her favorite character being LILIEL as well, he just couldn't not accept her. However, as it turns out, Ririsa has more spunk than she first let on. Believing that Masamune is someone who could help and understand her, Ririsa reveals that she's actually passionate about cosplaying and is in fact dreaming of making her own cosrome. After revealing her secret that she allegedly had not shared with anyone before, Ririsa asks Masamune if he could become her photographer. At first, Masamune was reluctant, but after Ririsa cosplayed LILIEL in front of him, once again he can't just say no. In fact, he even takes photos of her in his phone for test shoots, and she loved every piece of it. After an unexpected accident that made Masamune feel super awkward, he heads out first, leaving Ririsa on her own with a racing heart. The next day, we are introduced to the supermodel Mikari, who also happens to be a new transfer student claiming to hate manga and who seems to be somehow related to Masamune. Meanwhile, at the manga club, Ririsa informs Masamune about the new transfer student in her class. She excitedly tells him how the new student is perfect to cosplay as her partner. The conversation then turned to whether Masamune was really willing to be her photographer or not. When Masamune told her that he was in fact taking this role as seriously as he can, she asked him to take more pictures of her for practice using the club's camera. Unfortunately, she didn't have her costumes with her, so she decided to just make do with her school uniform. Everything seemed to be going well until she saw the pictures that Masamune took and felt so self-conscious. Later that afternoon, after an accident in the hallway involving Mikari and her admirers, the supermodel unexpectedly found her way to the manga club room. She excitedly hugged Masamune, revealing that she's actually a tsundere and hiding the fact that she's head over heels for him. As it turns out, Mikari is Masamune's childhood friend. Back when they were still kids, Masamune had saved her from bullies, and ever since then she'd always wanted to attract his attention. And when she realized that Masamune only had eyes for 2D girls, she actually made an effort to cater to his hobbies. That is up until 5 years ago when she was scouted to become a model and had to leave the city to pursue a career. Mikari had hoped that 5 years would be enough to change him, but as it so happens, he's still the same. Despite everything, though, she realized that she still can't hate him and is still very much into him, and so she leaves him in the club room with bittersweet tears. Not long after, Mikari found herself on the rooftop where she had the perfect view of the club room and of Masamune. She was ecstatic to find the spot, that is, until she saw a girl entering the club room. With no time to waste, Mikari dashes into the club room. The scene she saw the moment she opened the door sent her into tears. Masamune was blushing while holding a camera and in the act of taking pictures of the girl. Mikari was so upset that she started hitting Masamune and would have probably continued doing so if it weren't for Ririsa calling out to her and pointing out how they are in the same class. Once Ririsa finally caught her attention, she then asks Mikari if she wants to cosplay with her. That was when the supermodel took a good look at Ririsa and asked if she's LILIEL. Ririsa explained to the stunned Mikari that she's cosplaying LILIEL and was even generous enough to educate the supermodel on what it's all about. After some back and forth between the trio and Ririsa explaining to her the situation between her and Masamune, Mikari eventually agreed to cosplay with her for the cosrome. At first, Mikari demanded that she wants to be LILIEL, seeing as it's Masamune's favorite character. Although she had no choice but to concede after seeing that appearance-wise, Ririsa is the best choice to cosplay the blonde angel. That said, she accepted cosplaying Miriella, another character in the Ashford Chronicles, and just so happens to be LILIEL's bestie. Well, it's not like Mikari hates the character. In fact, growing up, she couldn't help but sympathize with Miriella's character, who had an unrequited love for the main character Ashford, who in turn is in love with LILIEL, much like the situation the trio are in at the moment. Mikari was amazed at Ririsa's dedication after she stayed up late last night just to finish the Miriella costume, not to mention its LILIEL counterpart, especially since Ririsa was pretty particular with the detail, insisting that the fans would definitely notice it if she wasn't. Although reluctant at first to wear the super skimpy costume, Mikari eventually gets into character as she poses and acts as Miriella while showing her affection for Ashford, in this case to Masamune, not long after they started taking pictures for the Cosrom. Unfortunately, the photo session eventually ended in a failure after Mikari tells Ririsa that she can't use the photos they took together for public use since it would go against her contract as a model. Ririsa was of course upset that the photos will just end up being shelved. Nevertheless, she'll definitely cherish them. Mikari also admitted that she doesn't mind doing the group cosplay again with Ririsa. After all, in a way it was a step closer to getting Masamune to look at her the way that she wants to. As for Ririsa, she couldn't help feeling something strange seeing Mikari and Masamune chat together, although she chose to ignore it for now. On a different note, Ririsa tells Masamune that, even excluding the unusable photos they took with Mikari, they still have enough photos to make a proper Cosrom. They have to work overtime though if they want to finish preparing the photos and sold it in the upcoming event which Ririsa had also booked a space for. There was just about a week left, and they had to edit about 500 photos. Although it was Ririsa who had to do all the major works, Masamune made sure that he's always there to support her by doing the menial tasks. Fast forward to a week later, Ririsa finally managed to finish editing all the pictures for the Costrom, and what's left is just to burn them into the DVDs. Both Ririsa and Masamune are just really glad that the week-long preparation for the event is finally over. Speaking of the event, Ririsa informs Mikari about it. Of course, Mikari was flustered and was prompt to ask Ririsa how she feels about Masamune. Ririsa honestly answers that Masamune feels like the character Ashford, who is always there to support and help LILIEL achieve her dreams. That was when Mikari realized that perhaps Ririsa might already be feeling something for Masamune, although she's still not aware of it herself. Later that evening, Masamune was conflicted if he should treat the event as some sort of date between him and Ririsa, since in a way it really is. As it turns out, he wasn't alone, and Ririsa was also feeling the same. Fortunately, Mikari was there to the rescue. After Ririsa asked her to put together a date-worthy OOTD for the event, she eventually meets Masamune at the train station and was even praised for being fashionable by him. Fashionable outfits aside, the two of them arrived at the area 4 hours earlier than the official start of the event. They were so early that all the stores and shops in the area were still closed or had just closed, so they didn't really have anywhere to hang out. After Ririsa hurt her feet while they were looking for a place to stay, they decided to stop outside a convenience store to rest and just watch the most recent episode of their favorite anime. Time flew by fast, and it was finally time for them to enter the event hall. When they finally got into their booth, Ririsa realized that she had forgotten to make the posters, cards, covers, and all the other necessary items they'd need to attract customers. Although she can just cosplay like everyone else, Ririsa is hesitant seeing, as there are tons of veteran cosplayers around, and she might just end up not getting attention at all. Right next to their booth are the duo Majino the cosplayer and Ogino, her trusted photographer and partner, both of which are very much into the event and sparing no wasted energy to promote Majino and her Cosrom. In contrast to Ririsa and Masamune's bare booth with a non-cosplaying Ririsa, that it was no wonder no one were willing to buy from them. Although reluctant at first, Masamune finally gives his heartfelt speech, encouraging Ririsa to put on her costume and do a cosplay before the end of the event. It was an embarrassing speech that indirectly turned into a skit which attracted the people around them and somehow promoted their booth. To put it nicely, that is. Anyways, thanks to Masamune's words, Ririsa was convinced to give a last hurrah as she quickly went to the changing room to prepare. As she did, she noticed how she'd forgotten a lot of items, which made her once again lose all hope. To her surprise, however, the other cosplayers around her offered to give her their spare items without asking anything in return other than promising to someday return the favor to someone else who might be in the same situation. Not long after, with everyone's help, she's finally ready to head back to her partner as LILIEL. Despite Ririsa's fears from earlier, the photographers in the hallway turned their eyes on her direction as she exited the dressing room, running straight to Masamune's direction. Phew, that was something! Are you enjoying the video so far? Did you also find LILIEL cute? If you're enjoying the video, please make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. It really means a lot to us. Immediately, Ririsa's cosplay of LILIEL became the center of attention, with all the cosplay fans and photographers lining up to get a chance to take a photo of her. Even Ogino was full of praises and took a spot for himself. As for Masamune, he was so proud of Ririsa for overcoming her fears as she posed for the crowd using all the original manga poses of LILIEL. Although there were some who kept on commenting how she's awkward at posing, only real LILIEL fans like Ogino could tell just how much Ririsa loved her character. After the event was over, her fellow cosplayers only had praises for Ririsa as well. The conversation then turned into recounting their personal horror stories and struggles as cosplayers. That said, Ririsa is so happy and grateful for everyone's help and promised that she'd attend the next cosplay event again. Since it had gotten late, Ririsa and Masamune had to meet at the train station. As soon as Ririsa got there, however, she began calling out for Elf Onisan, who lent her the ruffle shorts earlier. The Elf Onisan turned out to be Eri, a closet otaku who had no choice but to show herself, since she worked in an office around the area and Ririsa's hunt could potentially expose her secret. Eri also happens to be one of the two cosplayers that Ririsa met when she was still in middle school, the other cosplayer being Mayura, who was also Ririsa's inspiration and idol. That's why the young cosplayer could help but feel upset when she heard that Mayura had already retired as a cosplayer. But despite feeling disappointed, Ririsa is positive that as long as she keeps cosplaying in events, eventually, she'll be able to meet Mayura again someday. Speaking of being positive, as it turns out, it wasn't just Masamune, but also Ririsa, who are too dense to recognize the feelings they're starting to have for each other. Ririsa confidently declared that her love for Masamune is just as her cosplay partner, and so Masamune also interpreted his own as such. Guess Mikari's the only one happy for this development. As for Mikari, she was loitering outside the clubroom the following school day, worrying whether Ririsa had finally confessed her feelings for Masamune during the event or not. To her surprise, she came upon Ririsa inside, who was halfway through getting dressed for another cosplay photo shoot. Mikari was relieved to find out that despite everything, Ririsa still hadn't figured out that she's actually already falling for their senpai. Anyways, Ririsa had to put her uniform back on after she was summoned for her remedial classes. With Ririsa gone and Mikari the only one in the room with all of the LILIEL costumes, the supermodel decided to try them on and see how she'll look in it. And what do you know? Masamune just so happens to arrive in the room as soon as Mikari finished getting dressed. At first, Mikari thought that her cosplaying didn't affect Masamune, but soon realized that it actually did. Somehow. This once again encouraged her that someday she'll probably be able to get the boy to look at her the way she wants. Not long after, Ririsa also returns to the room and was really impressed by Mikari's cosplay. Fast forward to a few days later. Masamune meets with Ogino, who he asks to teach him photography skills. The older guy was generous enough that he also shared with Masamune some cosplay know-hows like the information about the top 4 cosplayers. And with the rumors of one of them retiring, there are talks that perhaps Ririsa would be the perfect candidate to take the spot. Majino and Ogino taught Masamune how important a photographer's role is to a cosplayer and how important it is that both the cosplayer and photographer had the perfect understanding of each other's personalities. And it was thanks to the two of them that Masamune was inspired to take his role as Ririsa's partner more seriously. The following school day, Masamune and Ririsa were psyching themselves up for their future cosplay events and activities when someone knocked on their club room door. The visitors were the student council representatives who informed them that the manga club is going to lose their club room, seeing as they had not complied with the requirements to deserve it, and for the last 3 years at that. Not only will their club be demoted to a meeting group, their club room will also be given to the aquarium club, who had just gained the qualifications to become a full-fledged club. Masamune felt responsible for the club's situation, especially when his senpais had already mentioned it to him before. Not wanting to lose the place that'll help Ririsa fulfill her dream, Masamune promised the younger girl that he'll do something about their problem. And so, Masamune went to the student council office where he was given a list of guidelines that they'll have to comply if they want to keep their club status. Most of them seemed to be doable except for the club advisor. The manga club president went to the available faculty to ask if someone was willing to take them in, but had no luck. That is until one of the teachers suggested that he asked the new teacher named Han Yu. To Masamune's surprise, the new home ec teacher Han Yu is in fact the cosplayer Mayura, whom Ririsa idolizes a lot. She had retired from cosplaying so she can officially join the workforce. After all, what kind of teacher goes around cosplaying and dressed up in sexy costumes, right? Unfortunately, even though Masamune informed her that their club's interests centered on manga and cosplay, Mayura was adamant that she won't take part of it. This forced Masamune to use dirty tricks by baiting Mayura with a copy of her own costume, which turned out great in the end, seeing as Mayura is smitten by Ririsa the moment she saw her in the clubroom cosplaying as LILIEL. Then again, although Mayura agreed to be their advisor, it wouldn't be enough to solve their clubroom problem since they still have to write a report that would include relevant club activities. Masamune had some ideas, although it was an epic fail. Anyways, Mayura suggested that they do a community service reading manga to the local elementary school kids. On their first day, the two struggled since the kids won't even give them a glance, much more listen. Fortunately, they were able to solve this dilemma by having Ririsa cosplay as a LILIEL in PG, of course, and have her read to the kids. The effect was phenomenal, and Masamune was finally able to take good photos for their club activity documentations. A few days later, Masamune was finally able to complete the report for the student council, although just when they were about to turn it in, Ririsa raised a concern, to which Masamune seemed to agree as well. The following day, Masamune and Ririsa informed their advisor that they won't be sending the report about the manga reading activity they did as a club activity, much to Mayura's astonishment. In return for not submitting the community service they did for the elementary kids, Masamune and Ririsa decided to participate in the Yokosuka cosplay event and use that in their activity report instead. Mayura was against it, seeing as she already had a first-hand experience of how the society in general treats cosplayers like them. She was pretty sure that there's a good chance it won't be accepted by the student council. But Ririsa was determined to go through with it, and Masamune was right behind her. Eventually, Mayura was convinced, although she warns them that they should perform well in the event, if not be the best. We are then introduced to a new character, who also happens to be one of the top 4 cosplay queens, Nagomi. She's a pro cosplayer who cosplays popular characters and is sponsored by a huge company. Just her presence alone is bound to raise the bar for the cosplayers in the event. A few days later, the day of the event arrived. Fortunately, Majino and Ogino are also there to guide Ririsa and Masamune. On their way to the dressing room, however, Majino and Ririsa encounters Nagomi, who seemed to recognize Ririsa as the one who cosplayed LILIEL. The conversation was friendly at first, until Nagomi started being too sensitive, as if wanting to start a drama of sorts. Although Ririsa tried to not let it affect her, it was obvious that Nagomi's words got to her. Even Majino could tell how Ririsa's confidence was really hurt by Nagomi's dissing. As for Ogino and Masamune, they were discussing a strategy to maximize their chances of attracting people to their booths and, in turn, their respective cosplayers. Although nervous, Masamune was fully prepared to do his best. Phew. With the introduction of new characters, the story also gets more interesting. Here's a question for you. Did cosplaying ever cross your mind? Halloween costumes doesn't count though. Please share us your thoughts in the comments below. Using the excuse that she's attending the event to support her students, Mayuri couldn't help but get overwhelmed after once again coming to a cosplay event. Especially in this particular building that she's been to countless of times already, her body seemed to get into auto drive as she moved around. Meanwhile, Nagomi expresses her worries regarding Ririsa. She admitted to her managers how the young cosplayer reminded her of Mayura, the one cosplayer she couldn't ever beat despite giving it her best to cosplay. The worst part is that Mayura even suddenly retired. With regards to Ririsa, the pro cosplayer believes that if her words were enough to bring down Ririsa's confidence, then she's not going to survive in the cosplaying business. Unfortunately, Nagomi's words really did have a huge effect on Ririsa's mental and emotional state, to the point that she hadn't even started preparing even when everyone else was just about done. Not long after Majino joins Masamune and Ogino, and together they witness just how a pro cosplayer grabs the attention of people. Despite Nagomi's character being new and barely had any information available, she was still able to embody it and make it her very own. Back to Ririsa, she informs her senpai that she couldn't find her LILIEL skirt. Masamune immediately went to her side to try and console her along with Majino and Ogino. However, it only resulted in Ririsa getting more depressed with Nagomi's words still weighing heavily in her head. After Ririsa and Masamune almost got into an argument, the boy left Ririsa by herself with Majino and Ogino. That was when Mayura revealed herself and tried to do what she was supposed to do as their club advisor, only for Ririsa to once again make her realize another valuable lesson instead. Mayura then left Ririsa on her own, only to return shortly after wearing the costume that she was supposed to debut in the previous winter comiquette. Once again, Mayura tried to do her job as the club advisor as she tried to bring back Ririsa's confidence, and along the way made the young girl realize that the cosplayer Mayura and her home ec teacher Mayura are one and the same. Just then, Masamune arrives with the cosplayer who accidentally took Ririsa's skirt. After a dramatic and cringy speech from Masamune, Ririsa finally gained the confidence to once again try to cosplay for the event. The only problem is that Nagomi's photo shoot is about to end, which means the majority of the people attending the event will also be going home. That's to say, by the time Ririsa finished getting ready, the spectators and the audience would have long disappeared. This time, it was Mayura who came to the rescue as she once again reveals herself and hints that it's her turn to help. If you wanted to know what happens next and you're enjoying our content, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Your support will help our channel grow and encourage us to make more videos. Hey guys, we're back with part 2 of this series. Are you excited to know what happens next? Well, we gotcha. Following Mayura's declaration previously, Ogino and Masamune headed back to the crowd of people who couldn't get enough of Nagomi. Not to take photos like the rest of them, though, but just as spectators. Ogino could tell that the photo shoot was just about to end, and they were in a bind on what to do since Ririsa was far from ready. Fortunately, as she promised, Mayura arrives at the scene, surprising everyone and dividing the crowd. A good number of the people taking Nagomi's pictures just a couple of seconds ago are now forming a circle around Mayura, much to Nagomi's frustration. As expected, the pro cosplayer isn't one to easily back down. She takes up Mayura's implied challenge and takes her cosplaying a notch higher with bolder poses and moves. But for some reason it's not working. Nagomi then visits memory lane and recalls when she and Mayura were still cosplaying together. Although they consider each other rivals, they're also still very good friends. But even then, Nagomi is already very jealous of how good and popular Mayura is as a cosplayer, even though she only ever played one character in her career. What Nagomi doesn't know, however, is that Mayura also felt the same towards her. Mayura is jealous of Nagomi, who loves cosplaying so much that she's not afraid to let everyone else know and see, unlike her. Suddenly, Mayura started walking away, leaving Nagomi very confused. Right at that moment, though, Ririsa arrives on the scene. Immediately, the photographers in the area couldn't help but turn to her direction and admire her costume. Now, Nagomi's target of contempt is Ririsa. It turns out the reason why she said all those mean things to the newbie cosplayer was because she was jealous of how Ririsa genuinely loves the character she cosplays and in return enjoys cosplaying it. It wasn't that long ago when she too was like Ririsa, but somehow along the way, she lost her direction and forgot why she started cosplaying in the first place. Seeing Ririsa in person and enjoying herself as she cosplays, Nagomi was reminded of her past self. As Nagomi starts posing for the camera with a genuine smile on her face, she knows that for the first time in a long time, she can finally forgive herself and go back to how she used to be. As Ririsa continued to give her best posing for the photographers as LILIEL, Ogino couldn't help observing how the newbie cosplayer's strength is her huge arsenal of LILIEL poses and expressions. She memorized all the poses that LILIEL fans had once dreamed of being acted out in 2D. Meanwhile, Ririsa recalls the words that Nagomi said to her before the event. She might not know her real reason for being a cosplayer then, but now she realizes that cosplaying makes her feel safe and confident to be who she wants to be. As for Nagomi, she's just really thankful that Ririsa made her realize what cosplaying meant for her, and is just happy to be sharing the stage with Ririsa, whom she unconsciously considers a rival. Once the event concludes, Ririsa once again leaves the photographers wondering who she is. Ririsa goes inside the building and goes straight to hug Masamune as she apologizes for all the trouble she caused. And as expected, her senpai didn't mind it at all and was just glad to be there for her, much like how Mayura felt as she left the building. Not long after, as she did, however, Eri tearfully calls out to her. Despite the violent start of their reunion, the two eventually shared a heartwarming moment, with hopes that this time they'll be able to keep on being friends, even with Mayura deciding to retire. Back inside the building, Ririsa was just about to go to the changing room when she bumped into Nagomi. It was a friendly exchange this time, and the two even took a selfie together. Nagomi could really imagine herself being friends with Ririsa. That is, until she realized that the Kai-sama look-alike she had been dying to meet all day was, in fact, Ririsa's photographer. Not missing her chance, though, Nagomi exchanged numbers with Masamune and encouraged him to cosplay. Not long after, Nagomi also gets a dose of confidence when she has the use of the public changing room and has a reality check that it was just her who thinks that everyone hates her. In fact, a lot of cosplayers like her and celebrate the fact that she's a professional cosplayer. Going forward, Nagomi will definitely be more approachable and friendly to all cosplayers and events. Later on, before leaving the events area, Nagomi approaches Ririsa and encourages her to participate in the summer comiket, promising to have her back if things get tough for her. On their way home, Masamune and Ririsa are on a train and are seen as a couple by others, even by Mayura, who just happens to be nearby. She even heard Ririsa tell Masamune how much she loved him and made him promise to stay with her for a long time. Mayura thought that the two were actually a thing, only to realize later the bitter reality that she had just become the advisor of two idiots who couldn't even tell that they liked each other. The next day, Mayura submits the club's report to the principal herself and pleads to let the two continue with their activities as a club with full privileges. Although the principal doesn't look like he minds, he still wants the student council to make the decision. As for Ririsa, she just got into their room when Mikari comes to her and anxiously asks Ririsa what she had just done. Although their classmates were all abuzz about Ririsa's mysterious altar, that was not what Mikari was making a fuss about. As it turns out, despite all the supplemental classes that Ririsa is taking, she still managed to fail all her subjects. Guess the supplemental classes will continue going forward, huh? Later in the afternoon, Masamune and Mayura were alone in the club room and discussing the result of the club activity report that they submitted. Mayura told Masamune that although the school accepted their report, there was a condition. That's to say they can't go public with their activities. In fact, it seems like it was only the principal and the student council president who actually knew about their arrangements. Masamune was a little upset as he wondered if cosplaying was really something that they should hide. Mayura then explains to him that the condition was not because the school was ashamed of them. Going back to the conversation that Mayura had with the principal after submitting the club's activity report, he tells Mayura that although the teachers may be supportive of their activities, the same thing couldn't be said about their schoolmates. In the worst-case scenario, they may get teased and bullied. Negative rumors could also be spread on the internet about Ririsa, which might force her to give up cosplaying eventually, which is something that Mayura could somehow relate to. Back to the present, once Masamune heard the reasoning behind the verdict, it was easy for him to accept it. Ririsa had the same thoughts as well when she was filled in about the results later on. They're just really glad that they can keep their club room and continue with their cosplaying activities. With everything now settled, they can freely do other activities as well, just like playing video games, where Mayura effortlessly beats Masamune using Lustalot. Speaking of Mayura and her favorite character, Ririsa asks Mayura to teach her sewing skills, which the veteran cosplayer didn't say no to. As the two started their lessons, Mikari, who also came to hang out, got busy chatting on her phone with her manager regarding getting permission for something, concluding the conversation by declaring that she'll talk directly to the company president herself. On another occasion, Masamune was having a videoless video call with Ogino, where the latter informed Masamune about Mr. Camera. It seems that this persona is one of the legendary figures in the cosplay world, seeing as everyone they feature in their blog makes it big. And this time they made another entry titled Make Way for the 5 Rising Stars of Cosplay, where Ririsa's LILIEL ranked 5th. Although Masamune was quite upset at first that his LILIEL only ranked 5th in the list, Ririsa made him realize later on how cosplaying isn't really a competition, and that every cosplayer is comrades who share a love for the same thing. Meanwhile, we get a foreshadowing of a new character who seemed quite upset that LILIEL only made it in 5th place on Mr. Camera's list. One weekend, Masamune and Ririsa went on a trip to a fabric shop, not just to replenish her stock of materials, but also to find inspiration for her next costume, during which she was approached by a girl who Ririsa recognized to be Nonoa, the 4th placer on Mr. Camera's 5 Rising Cosplay Star blog. She looked so fierce and intimidating as she handed a flyer for a Cinderella Star cosplay event to Ririsa. Ririsa later shares this news to Masamune, who also wonders if it was some sort of a call for challenge, given that Nonoa looked quite furious. Nevertheless, Ririsa decides to take on the challenge and assures Masamune that she'll get her costume done in a week by the day of the event. Meanwhile, Nonoa gets back home and changes into her favorite cosplay avatar, where she feels comfortable. It was then revealed that despite how she may have looked earlier, she really means no harm to Ririsa and just wants to befriend her. But the thing is that she has social anxiety, which prevents her from even expressing herself. Fast forward to a week later, Ririsa and Masamune went to the event's location together with Mayura. Nagomi was also present, seeing as she is the official guest of the event. As for Nonoa, after eavesdropping on the four as they were catching up, she realized that she actually gave a terrible first impression of Ririsa, and that Ririsa had thought that the flyer she gave her was actually a letter of challenge. We then go back to memory lane on Nonoa's short backstory, where it's revealed how she also adores LILIEL as a kid. Back then, Nonoa had always been an otaku. She used to be very popular among her friends then, but after everyone grew up, they eventually cast aside all the otaku-ness and made her an outcast, leaving her without any friends. But all hope wasn't lost after she found out about cosplaying and eventually tried it herself. After all, it's a world where everyone can be friends while enjoying the same hobbies. Shortly after, she found out about LILIEL's cosplayer and wanted to become friends with her. And that's why Nonoa wanted to have a good first impression on Ririsa, although that wasn't what happened. Every time she tries to approach Ririsa and talk to her, she just ends up showing hostility and can't even utter a single word out. Later on, as Ririsa and Nonoa took the center stage, Ririsa herself approached Nonoa to try and take a photo shoot together. Of course, it was something that Nonoa herself wanted so badly as well. Unfortunately, she once again couldn't say anything, and it eventually looked like she was coldly rejecting Ririsa's invitation. When Nonoa couldn't take it anymore, she ran away from the area, all the while regretting what she just did. Once she was out of the building, dark thoughts started consuming her as she remembered how her social anxiety had started. Before these thoughts totally took over, however, Masamune suddenly showed up as he tried to talk to her. For some reason, Nonoa is just so easy to relate to. Is it the same for you? Well, I'm telling you guys, it's not something to be ashamed of. And you don't have to cosplay just to be one.
So Masamune walked up to Nonoa because bro wanted to know how she really feels about Ririsa. And Nonoa agreed to listen, but she couldn't help looking like she was about to delete him from existence. Masamune tried to get his point across as sincerely as he could, and honestly, Nonoa appreciated it. It hit her hard enough that she even managed to say a few words back. All she could do was thank him for helping her out, and Masamune responded in a way that Nonoa didn't expect. Then, just when it seemed like they might actually have a real convo, she suddenly made a run for it, leaving our boy totally confused. So, LILIEL, after that whole thing with Nonoa, she's starting to get all awkward in front of the photographers, overthinking everything. Uh, Is it an inherent thing for otakus to think of the worst case scenarios under stress? Huh, I think it might be. I've had a few episodes myself. But, putting my own cringe moments aside, Mayura noticed Ririsa struggling and called her over. Even Nagomi noticed and stepped in to help, thinking Ririsa was feeling pressured because of her. But Nagomi is not the problem. At least Nagomi realized it was actually Nonoa who was bothering our blonde angel. For once, she's actually acting like a real senpai, sharing some wisdom she just picked up with LILIEL. Well, better late than never. This made Ririsa realize that if she just told Nonoa how she feels, she might. some intense inner debate, Nonoa finally got the courage to ask Ririsa to be her friend. And they instantly became besties! Yay! And let's not forget our other best girl, Mikari. When her plan to convince her manager to let her cosplay failed, she had to improvise to spend more time with her senpai. Okay, now, Nonoa and Ririsa are total besties. And Nonoa was outside the building waiting for Ririsa to finish changing when Nagomi saw her and decided to call her out. This girl had maxed out her sassiness and went ahead, making her own assumptions and accusing Nonoa of being jealous of Ririsa. She wasn't trying to be mean or anything. Nagomi just wanted Nonoa to realize that cosplaying isn't just about competition. She then started rambling about cosplayer camaraderie and all that, but ended up super embarrassed when she found out it was just a misunderstanding. And that Ririsa and the others had been standing there, listening to her yapping the whole time. So when Ririsa and Nonoa started talking about LILIEL, Nonoa realized that she wasn't really doing anything wrong before everything fell apart. Getting carried away talking about stuff you love isn't a bad thing at all. Her friends just sucked back then. Anyways, we get to meet this new character. A super extroverted, kind of forgetful Gyaru named Arya, who's all about making friends with Ririsa and Nonoa. But more of her later. Fast forward to another day. Nonoa agreed to meet with Ririsa and Masamune after school for their very first studio photoshoot. And to make it more special, they even got a recommendation from Mayura's friend, Chika, who, back in their younger days, was often dragged around and forced to cosplay with Mayura whenever she needed a male cosplayer for events. That said, Chika owned the studio they would be using for the day and even allowed them to use it for free. Even though they were kinda hesitant at first, the trio eventually went along with it. After all, isn't it the older generation's job to help the newbies? Oh, and by the way, Chika was actually Mayura's photographer too, and he even offered to help them out. But Ririsa insisted that only her senpai could take photos of her LILIEL. How to say I like you without actually saying I like you. After that, the trio moved to the fantasy room. Masamune couldn't help himself when he saw Nonoa cosplaying another big character from the series, Nokiel. And bro went nuts! Even with all the un-senpai-like moves, the photoshoot actually went pretty well. In the middle of the photoshoot, they suddenly heard a commotion outside. Turns out, Arya was one of Chiga's regulars, and when she found out that Ririsa and Nonoa were there, she just had to meet them. As expected, she's totally the opposite of Nonoa. Exactly the kind of person most introverts run from. Arya jumped right in, introducing herself and asking if she could join the shoot. She even came right out and asked to be friends. Nonoa was totally shocked because she's never been able to do that herself. That just made her even more sad on not letting Arya join the shoot, especially after Arya admitted she's just cosplaying to get popular. Not because she actually loves manga or anime. Well, Arya didn't exactly say that, but that's the vibe Nonoa got. Nonoa even confronted Arya about it, saying that if she just wants to be famous, there are other ways to do it. But of course, Arya had her reasons and insisted that cosplaying really is the only way for her. Somehow, Arya's sincerity got through to Nonoa, and she finally gave in. In the end, they figured they might as well give Arya a shot. When the new girls started changing, they began wondering if Arya was at the previous event they attended, and why they didn't notice someone as beautiful as her. Masamune guessed that maybe she just got a bad spot. And as they were waiting, Arya finished changing her outfit and... absolute disappointment. They had no idea who she was cosplaying. She explained it was from the anime Princess Channel, and she was cosplaying Pearl. Nonoa freaked out because Aria's cosplay was way different from the original. Ririsa was even more pissed than the rest, making Aria scared for a sec. After a series of yapping about cosplayer dedication, Ririsa asked Aria if she was okay with being taught the way she cosplays. Of course, Aria immediately accepted. To kick things off, they'd start with only 1,000 famous anime series. Top that, plebeians. Later, while they were changing again, Aria asked Ririsa if she could check out her costume. And Ririsa was fine with it, as long as it was for research purposes. Aria even asked if she could touch Ririsa's chest, and Ririsa agreed. At first, Nonoa was protective, but it turned out she wanted to touch it too, and she even called it angelic. Ririsa invited Aria to their school club, even though they were at different schools. Somehow, the principal allowed it, thinking Ririsa was competing nationally. Anyway, they used the day to push Aria down the rabbit hole of otaku life, and it kind of felt like a cult. Funny thing, when Sensei introduced himself, Aria thought he was Ririsa's boyfriend. They quickly cleared that up. For now. Wink wink. Ririsa figured that starting with LILIEL's main story would take 4 days to watch all 312 episodes, making Aria freak out. So, Ririsa suggested the side story instead. Just 12 episodes, taking only 4 hours to finish. When they started watching, they were screaming just at the sight of LILIEL. But Aria quickly shushed them. The first few episodes had them worried, thinking it wasn't clicking with Aria. But Aria said it was interesting, though she wanted to go outside and chill. The trio just stared. Outside? What's that? Anyways, Nonoa figured that if Aria couldn't handle this level of anime, learning cosplay from Ririsa was impossible. But Aria was super into it, even surprising Nonoa. By the end of the series, Aria got hooked and even cried when LILIEL sacrificed herself. Mission accomplished! Aria mentioned that it reminded her of a manga from her childhood. But she didn't say much more than that. And it's actually way deeper than you'd expect. After binge watching, Aria started noticing all the teeny tiny details, like the animation and the plot, and Ririsa cried like a proud mom. Now that Aria had binged a bunch of anime, it was finally time to pick her first cosplay. She went with Ariel from LILIEL's side story, saying they kinda looked alike. Plus, Aria wanted to make the costume herself, with Ririsa's help. Back at Nonoa's place, she found something sus when she found out about Aria's costume from the previous event. If Aria really wanted to be famous, why pick an old manga character? Was she lying? The next day, Masamune revealed that Aria was playing Milia from Valkyrie Wars. He said it was an OG manga and even mentioned that he once sent a fan letter and got a reply. But it wasn't exactly a nice one. The author appreciated Masamune's letter, but warned him not to tell friends he loved the manga, or they'd bully him. But why? Valkyrie Wars got cancelled after 10 weeks because people thought it was copying Ash War Chronicle. Masamune figured the author must have been really depressed, but he still kept all the volumes. So, why would Aria cosplay from such an old manga? Suddenly, Aria entered the scene and was shocked to see Masamune holding a volume of the manga. Was she hiding? Nonoa kept pressing with questions until Aria finally opened up. Valkyrie Wars was actually drawn by her father. What? Her dad was a mangaka? Damn, that's insane! So, Arya shared what happened. Back when she was a kid, Arya loved her father's manga so much that even when her dad drew her, she didn't care about her own portrait. She just loved his manga. And even though that's sweet, her dad was a bit negative. No, slash that. He was very negative. He'd say Arya shouldn't bother loving his manga since it got cancelled, because no one was reading it anyway. Well, who cares? At least your daughter loved it. At some point though, Arya's parents started to argue about it. Her mom was tired of hearing his excuses over and over. But Arya's dad admitted his last manga got shut down and he was working on something new. Her mom was shocked. Why didn't he tell her about it? Especially since she was paying all the bills. But long story short, her dad couldn't publish anything again. And worse, they got divorced when Arya was 6. Arya gets why her mom left him because the last thing she remembers about her dad was his obsession with work. So, Arya isn't really bothered by the divorce. What really gets to her are the last words she and her father said to each other. And that's when her dad asked her why she was still reading this horrible manga. And he started crying, saying it was the reason his career was dead. Then, he threw the book on the ground. This made Arya cry, and out of anger, she said something she didn't mean. That she hated her father and his stupid manga. Her dad was shocked, and the sad thing was, Arya didn't know that was the day her dad was leaving them. It's been 10 years since he left, and her mom has no idea what he's up to. Arya figures he will probably quit being a mangaka. But she's always wanted to apologize for what she said, and she also wants her dad to do the same. And since she has no idea where he is or what he's up to, she decided to wear a cosplay from the manga he created, so he'd definitely hear about her. She even thought about hiring a private investigator, but Arya wasn't sure what she'd do if she actually found him. Besides, she doesn't feel like talking to her dad right now anyway. But there's one thing she wants to tell her father more than anything, and that's how much she really loves his manga. She's not just his daughter, she's his fan too. Ririsa was so touched that she started to cry and said she never needed to teach Arya anything about cosplay, because Arya already knows what cosplay is. Nanoa was even hyped, saying she'd help Arya become super famous. And the gang started planning what event they should target. Then, Ririsa had an amazing idea. They had to join the Summer Comic-Con. Even though everyone was freaking out, Arya had no idea what the heck they were talking about. Nanoa explained that this event is the biggest of the year, with like 700,000 people going. Damn, that's a lot of people. But there's a problem. If they're going to cosplay as the Angelic Airborne Defense Squadron, they need one more person. Oh boy, you already know who I'm thinking of. Our girl Mikarin. Since her modeling gig is on hiatus for a bit, that means she's totally free. Arya actually noticed her as soon as she entered the club room, because Arya is a huge fan. And when Masamune complimented her, Mikarin immediately got all friendly and asked Arya if she wanted an autograph. This time though, Nanoa had no idea who the heck Mikarin was. So, finally, Arya had her chance to explain everything. Then Mikarin said she'd agree to be the 4th member if Masamune-senpai asked her. Then she'd think about it. Arya was surprised she'd do it for Masamune. But she was even more surprised that our boy wasn't freaking out, even with Mikarin in the same room. Then Mikarin started acting all cute and asked her senpai if he wanted to see her cosplay. Of course, he immediately said yes, since he had to see all 4 members of the squad together. And Mikarin was all in. But is it really okay? Fashion models don't usually go to Comic-Con. Turns out, Mikarin's agency is cool with her cosplaying. She's even been doing it for the past 2 months. All because of a very special person. And we know who it is. And no, it's not Ririsa. Mikarin even said she'd wear whatever her senpai wants. Damn! And because of that, Arya was starting to wonder if Mikarin had a thing for Okumura. You're right, Arya. Anyways, Ririsa said it's time to start making the costumes for Ariel and Miriella. But Arya wanted to make her own costume to show her love, just like she does with her homemade Valentine chocolates and her handwritten letters. Then Mikarin realized that maybe giving Masamune super expensive chocolate was why he didn't feel her love. But we knew that wasn't the problem. Our guy just isn't into 3D girls. Mikarin is sure she'll fix it this year by, doing cosplay and giving him some fancy chocolate. Yeah, that might probably work. Probably. Now, when Ririsa is teaching Arya, she's actually sharing some amazing stuff about cosplay. But she started getting all weird. Because of that, Arya felt a bit embarrassed about how wrong she'd been doing everything before. She even had the nerve to call it cosplay. But Ririsa clarified that there's no right way to do it. She just wants to show Arya how fun it is to recreate a character she really loves. So, what does Ariel love about Ariel? Well, she loves how Ariel fights for her friends. Same goes for Miria from Valkyrie Battles. She just loves girls who care about friendship. And that's why she wants to make new friends and get to know them. Nagomi realized that Arya became a gyaru because of manga. Even our senpai explained that otaku, gyarus, and even delinquents might all share a common ancestor. Yeah, whatever that means. While they were working on Arya's costume, after she finished the base of the top part, Ririsa suggested that Arya should try it on before sewing everything together. So Arya starts changing, and totally forgets that Masamune senpai is right there. And everyone freaks out. Even though our boy offered to head home, they didn't want him to go. And Arya started wondering, what's so special about Masamune anyway? Nonowa just said she's sure Masamune has shown them all how trustworthy he is. But Arya's still not convinced. Maybe you'll see soon, Arya. Maybe you'll see soon. Now when she tried on what she'd made so far, she got kind of worried if anyone would notice the tiny details she'd added. And the moment our senpai walked back into the room, he literally noticed every single detail. A few moments later, Arya messed up the stitches on one of the plates she was working on, and she started feeling down. But Ririsa kept encouraging her that she could do it, and she distracted Arya so much that Ririsa forgot Mikarin was even in the corner. Then they all agreed to go eat at a restaurant. Then they started talking about what each of them wanted to eat. Nonowa wanted omurice. Arya wanted something with, 1,300 calories. Mikarin wanted something that fits a model's diet. And finally, Ririsa, she wanted the cheapest combo meal. But she ordered a lot of food anyway. And when they started eating, damn, Arya and Ririsa eat a lot. The next day, after a lot of stitching, Arya finally nailed the skirt. So, she had to try it on. And she accidentally took off her clothes again. But this time, props to her boy for immediately heading outside. Faster than the speed of sound. Day by day, the girls kept working on their costumes. And when they finally finished the final product, it was perfect. When Arya got home, she overheard something she probably shouldn't have. Her dad's mother-in-law called her mom, and while it wasn't clear what they talked about, the craziest part was what her mom said. And that was that Arya's dad died years ago. Wait, did she mean literally? So, if Arya's father is dead, is there even a point in doing cosplay anymore? Arya told her friends she heard her father is dead. Masamune asked her if she was sure about it, or if maybe she was just taking something out of context. Arya said that her mom didn't mention her dad's name, but since her mom was talking to her grandma on her dad's side, who else would they be talking about? But the fact that her mom said, it doesn't matter, like she really doesn't care about her dad anymore, really broke Arya. Everyone tried to comfort her, and just like that, she's all good. Yep, she's stronger than she looks. She even asked everyone to start finishing the details on their costumes. Now, that's a good thing, because I thought they'd have some problems with the cosplay because of all the drama. When they started measuring, of course our senpai went outside. He started complimenting Arya for being strong. But he felt something wasn't quite right. Though he couldn't put his finger on it. Yet, something's telling him that Kisaki-sensei isn't actually dead. So, Bro decided he had to do some investigating. Now back at Arya's house, during dinner, she asked her mom, does she ever regret marrying her dad? Her mom replied that she doesn't mind not having money as long as she can live a happy life. And Arya was confused. I'm also confused. But her mom explained that she didn't divorce Kisaki because he had no money. She divorced him because he lost sight of his dream. She also admits she's partly to blame. She turned Kisaki's passion into a tool to make money and support the family. They were unhappy, and she knew that if she stayed with him, she'd just make him even less happy. So she did what was best for both of them. This means that Arya's mom doesn't actually hate Kisaki. She even said he's a good man, just not the right one for their family. She told Arya, you don't have to say you hate someone just because you broke up with him. She was happy then, and she's happy now. She loved Kisaki back then, and that fact won't change. Besides, life's about finding happiness. It shouldn't be wasted on a man who won't give it. I know that sounds beautiful, but if she doesn't hate Kisaki, then how do you explain the phone call the other day? Let's see if Arya asks her mom about it. The next day, Arya's way better than yesterday. But what's the tension over there? Masamune was actually researching something yesterday. And when our senpai finally found what he was looking for, he freaked out. Masamune explained that he felt like something was off yesterday, so he started to dig into Arya's dad's history. And he showed Arya what he found, a bonus manga that wasn't published in any of the Valkyrie Battles volumes. But what else is in it? At the very bottom of the page, there's a message hinting that Kisaki was an apprentice to the author of the Ashford Chronicles, Takamatsu Sensei. Yep, the guy who created LILIEL. Now that makes more sense. That's probably why people said Valkyrie Battle feels a lot like the Ashford Chronicles. So, what does all of this mean? everything makes sense once Masamune shows the next thing he discovered. When he grabbed the volume of Valkyrie Battle, he pointed out the ears of one character. Masamune explained that every manga artist has their way of drawing ears, and even if their art style changes, the ear design usually stays the same. Really? I didn't notice that. Man, this otaku is on a whole different level. Then this means Aria's father isn't dead. Because it's possible that after the divorce, Kisaki could get a new series picked up. So since his art style was similar, he found work with his former mentor. He just changed his name and kept making manga, a spin-off of his mentor's series. And Masamune figured out that Aria's dad is the one who wrote their Bible, LILIEL's side story. Turns out, he's actually right. Kisaki is alive and listening to classical music. No, seriously, he's listening to classical music. And he's currently drawing something and talking to another manga assistant. Even though he's getting fan letters, he's not that into it, saying they're because of Takamatsu's sensei, since all Kisaki did was write a spin-off. The only fan letter he actually got was way back 10 years ago. And we all know who that's from. Kisaki even kept the letter. He regrets sending Masamune a disappointing response, saying he was just worried that Masamune would get bullied by crazy critics. But still, Masamune loved his manga, and Kisaki wished he'd told him how much that meant to him. Kisaki even cried, realizing he wrote those 100 pages for that one boy. Thanks to that fan, he didn't quit and kept going as a manga artist. Well, he's got 2 fans actually. That includes his own daughter, Aria. But he was so obsessed with work back then that he forgot to give her the love and attention she deserved. Kisaki also said that since his 2 fans are probably around the same age, he hopes they still love manga today. Lucky for you, Kisaki-senpai, they definitely still love manga. The next day, when Aria got to the school club, Masamune asked if she'd talked to her mom about the phone call. Yep, she did. And guess what? It wasn't actually her dad. It was just one of her grandma's other relatives. The whole thing was just a big misunderstanding. At least everything's clear now. But now, if their LILIEL cosplay stands out at Comiket, there's a good chance Kisaki will hear about them. Now Aria is pumped to finish their costume. Yet, Senpai Mayuri reminded them that Comiket won't be easy. It's gonna be huge, and there'll be a lot of competitors. All that's left to do is announce it online, because most people decide who they want to see before they even go. Nonowa did post, but it didn't get many shares, so their only hope is Mikari. And she didn't just post it on IG or anything, she announced it on TV! News spread so fast that it even reached Kisaki, who was shocked that his side story manga would be cosplayed by real people. Little did he know that his own OG character, Ariel, would be cosplayed by none other than his own daughter. He's so hyped he even turned up the volume on his music and said this is his favorite piece in the world. And it's called Aria. Damn, he named his daughter after his favorite music. That's kinda cool. Back to the gang. Masamune is checking Aria's costume. And it's perfect! Ariel is finally done! Yay! Now it's time for Comiket, and hopefully, Kisaki decides to go too. Because it'd be insane if he saw his daughter in person. The summer Comiket is really tough. There are a lot of otaku and cosplayers, especially famous ones who will be tough competition for our gang. Especially the twins, Lemon and Lime. Twin cosplayers are super rare, so they're in high demand, especially right now. Not only do they have top-notch costumes, but they're also cosplaying as the twin characters, Shiro and Kuro, from the popular anime Hellmaids. But there's no need to worry, right? As long as Aria's dad sees their photos, that's all that matters. But wait, is Daddy Kizuki even keeping up with all the cosplay news? Plus, he's not gonna hear about them unless their photos go viral. So, they just need to pull in a big crowd, get a lot of pictures taken, and have them posted online. When the girls finally put on their costumes, wow, they were gorgeous! They looked so perfect that Masamune was practically dying in the corner. And so was Mayuri sensei. Okumura even said it was the best cosplay he'd ever seen. As soon as the girls stepped outside, they were already drawing a lot of attention. Then Okumura asked something important of Ririsa. He told her, "Do this for me today." He explained that when the manga Ashford Chronicles ended, he didn't know if he could keep going. But when the spin-off dropped, it saved his life. That manga pulled him out of the pits of despair, and that's why it means so much to him. So he asked them to dazzle everyone with their cosplay, and to show Kizuki-senpai how much they loved his work. Damn, Masamune is really good at otaku pep talks. Even I'm hyped now. They ran into Nagomi, but Ririsa didn't recognize her. Nagomi declared that she would crush Mayuri, even though she's not competing. But Mayuri just said that Nagomi shouldn't see her as a rival anymore, and should focus on her apprentice instead. But Nagomi pointed out that she wasn't the only one they should be worried about. There are a lot of top-tier cosplayers there, especially the twins. And well, one of them was actually with them. But it looked like they had a problem. The other twin, Lime, was missing a part of their costume, which accidentally ended up in Lemon's bag. When Lemon checked her stuff, she asked the gang if they could help. Ririsa immediately said yes, but actually, Lemon needed Okumura's help. Huh? Wait, why? Turns out, Lime is actually a guy. So, he's in the men's changing room, but Lime doesn't look like a guy at all. Even Okumura was confused. The twins were grateful, and everyone started complimenting their costumes. Lime apologized to Masamune, hoping he wasn't grossed out. But of course, our boy wasn't. He even said Lime looked adorable and that his cosplay was perfect. Lime was like the living embodiment of Shiro. Mikarin, though, was getting a bit nervous because her competition just doubled. Even if they're all buddy-buddy now, that doesn't change the fact that the twins are fierce competition. Even Nagomi looked a little concerned about them. But enough worrying. It's time to hit the rooftop area. And wow, there were so many people up there. Plus, it was hot. Arya started getting really nervous, having second thoughts about becoming a famous cosplayer. She thought it would be easy. But Nonoa and the rest of the girls cheered her up. Don't worry, Arya, you're not alone. So Arya went out there with confidence, reminding herself that she's doing this so her dad could see her cosplaying the character he created. When they found their spot, everyone was staring at them. As soon as they were ready, people immediately started taking pictures. Well, they did attract a huge crowd. But there's a problem. Actually, there's a lot of problems. Number one, it was really, really hot. Number two, they had a big crowd, but it wasn't growing any bigger. So, what's the deal? Well, at Comiket, people are always on the move, hopping from one cosplay to the next, trying to catch everything. That's why they don't stick around for long. But if that's true, then why were the twins pulling in even more people? Especially since their costume quality and fame were on the same level as the gang's. The thing is, the gang was a larger cosplay group, and photographers couldn't get good shots of them all at once. The larger the group, the harder it is to coordinate poses and get a good photo. And it looked like they were only doing 2 or 3 poses. Sure, LILIEL might have an infinite number of poses, but the gang couldn't keep up with that. Unlike the twins, who were just 2 people, they were highly coordinated and had a lot of poses. Damn, cosplaying is hard. I feel that. And to make it worse, the heat was really getting to them. They decided to take a break, but as soon as they did, the crowd they attracted disappeared. So, will they actually survive Comic-Con? After the gang takes their break, they're back in the game. And while they're in the middle of posing, Ririsa suddenly collapses. Thankfully, Mikarin catches her. They try to help her to the first aid station, but she can't get up. So, Nonowa carries her, and everyone is so shocked because she looked like the real Nokiel in that moment. At the first aid station, the doctor says Ririsa has a mild case of heat stroke. She'll feel better if she keeps drinking water, but the doctor recommends she go home and rest. At first, Ririsa doesn't want to leave because it's Comic-Con, but the other girls insist she needs to rest. On the way home, Ririsa feels bad about not finishing Comic-Con and kind of blames herself, saying she'll do better tomorrow, which really pisses Nonowa off. She grabs Ririsa by the shirt, saying she's had enough of Ririsa doing everything alone. Since they're friends, Ririsa should let them know what she's thinking and what she wants them to do. It gets a bit dramatic, but honestly, Nonowa has a point. Even Arya and Mikarin agree with her. So before heading home, the girls start practicing over 50 poses. While they're practicing, Nonowa's phone keeps buzzing with new follower notifications. Turns out, someone posted a picture of her carrying Ririsa, LILIEL, and it went viral. Everyone online is saying they can't wait to see the gang at Comic-Con, which gets them all hyped up. Back at Comic-Con, as soon as they start posing, the crowd just keeps growing. People are shocked at how high quality their poses are, and they're all wondering how the group got so good in just one day. Looks like all those poses paid off. Even the twins, Lemon and Lime, are starting to look worried. With all this attention, let's hope Arya's dad will finally see her. Don't forget to subscribe and see what happens next time. See ya!